This model is progressing very quickly, at least for me. I suppose it should be since it is only a submarine, but for me it's quite a novel experience. This is the quickest I've built a model in a very long time. In today's video, I'll be constructing the superstructure, or I suppose it's really just the conning tower. This is the last major piece of plastic construction for this kit, and essentially it only consists of 5 pieces, and I'm going to be augmenting it with photo etch from the detail upgrade kit. One of the plastic components is entirely replaced, although I will be preserving some of the details that are on that component. Other than that, they're just various little bits of photo etch detail that need to be stuck to the side of the conning tower. I won't be installing all of this photo etch in this video because some of it is going to be painted in a different color to the superstructure, for example, the life rings. Other components like these antennas, which are quite delicate, will also not be constructed and installed in this video. I will simply be constructing the main core of the conning tower, painting it, and then installing it on the hull. The components on this sprue are quite a lot better than the other sprue. They have a lot less flashing, so I'm generally happy with their quality. Their detail is also quite good. But of all of these components, the only ones with detail that is really going to survive the installation of the detail upgrade kit are the conning tower pieces themselves. This deck section is going to be entirely replaced with photo etch, and the other one will have a photo etch layer put on top of it. Before gluing the conning tower together, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. This mostly involves clipping off the excess plastic from the injection points, but there are also some details that I'm going to remove because they're going to be replaced with photo etch. That will be these 2 antennas, one on each side of the conning tower, and the plastic molded life rings. There is also a small defect in the port side of the conning tower. There's this small dimple in this flat section. To fix that, it is a simple matter of filling it with plastic putty and then filing and sanding it smooth. The preparation for the 3 plastic deck components is both simpler and more involved. One of them is basically kept as is, it's just a matter of cleaning up the injection points. The other 2 need to have some of their larger details removed so they can be installed onto the photo etch. These are sawed off with a fine saw. And the smaller of the 2 components, which has a curved underside, needs to have the planking sanded off the top of it so that there is a smooth surface for the photo etch planking to be installed on top of. Now that all the plastic components are prepared, I can start with the photo etch details. I'm going to install some of the photo etch on the conning tower before I glue the conning tower together. That's because some of it is actually installed inside the conning tower and it'll be more difficult to access once it's all glued together. So I'm going to start with that. After cutting the panels off of the fret, I place them inside the conning tower in the correct position, hold them in place, and then glue them down using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire to the edge of the component. This process is repeated several times until all the components are installed in their correct location. In addition to these vertical panels, there are gratings that also need to be installed on top of the conning tower. These are much smaller components, so I'm going to use a slightly different installation technique. Here I apply a very small drop of medium viscosity superglue to the location where the grating needs to be installed, and then I place the grating on top of the superglue. Before the superglue sets, I position the grating into its correct position. Before I start gluing together the conning tower, I'm going to prepare the other photo etch components. I want to be able to hold them all together and check their fit before I apply glue. This larger deck needs to be folded in half and glued together. This is because it is an entire replacement for the plastic kit. Folding it half bulks it up to get it to the correct width. If it was just a single layer of photo etch, it would be too thin. To ensure that the deck remains properly closed, I start by applying a small drop of medium viscosity superglue to the center of the deck, then I squeeze it shut. While holding the deck shut, I apply extra thin superglue with a wire to the edge and allow capillary action to draw the glue between the pieces of photo etch. For the photo etch that is attached to the plastic platform, I follow a similar procedure. Here I position the photo etch onto the plastic loose. Once I'm happy with its position, I bond it in place using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire to the edge of the component. After doing a test fit with the components, I'm now happy that everything will fit together well, but it is quite clear that I need to paint some of these components now. Painting after assembly is going to be difficult, at least for some areas of this boat. So I've decided to paint some components now before assembly. Firstly, I'm painting the decks. The deck inside the conning tower is obviously going to be the most difficult one to paint later. but if I'm painting one deck, I might as well paint all the others at the same time. For similar reasons as to the deck, I'm also going to paint the bulkheads on the inside of the conning tower in this very dark grey. It's just going to be difficult to access this area once the conning tower is complete, especially with the deck being a different color to the bulkheads, and also having details on the deck that are a different color to the deck itself. The details on the deck are painted in the same dark grey as the bulkheads in the conning tower. After painting the small deck inside the conning tower, I realized that there's a small photo etch detail that I missed. That is a hatch wheel. So I quickly installed that using extra thin super glue and then brush painted in the same dark grey. I'm glad I picked that up now, because if I only realized that after I had assembled the whole conning tower, it would have been quite difficult to get such a small component down there into the base of the conning tower. Now that I'm happy with the paint work for this internal area of the conning tower, assembly can begin. The two sides of the conning tower, along with its internal deck, are placed in contact with each other. Then extra thin plastic cement is applied to the components to bond them together. It was at this point that I realized that there are some more plastic details that need to be removed from the conning tower. These very thick, blocky structures are actually supposed to be ladders. So they are horribly out of scale, so I'm going to replace them. The kit did provide 2 ladders. Obviously I need 4, but ladders aren't exactly difficult to come by, and I'll just salvage some extra ladders from my old kits. So these horrible plastic ladders can be removed. I use clippers to remove the bulk of the plastic, then a file and sandpaper to smooth it out. While I have the file and sandpaper out, I also clean up the seam lines where these components were bonded together. Next up is the installation of the 2 outer decks, starting with the lower one. This is the entirely photo etch deck. I start by gluing it in place from the inside using thick super glue, and then from the outside I apply extra thin super glue with a super glue applicator to fill gaps and to create a very strong bond. The underside of the smaller upper deck is plastic, so I glue it in place using extra thin plastic cement. Plastic cement is easier to work with than super glue because it is slower drying. It just gives you more time to correctly position the component. Super glue, even the thick slow drying variety, has a tendency to lock in place quite quickly. Now that all the construction for this video has been completed, I can move on to painting. I start by masking off the decks and then spraying the exterior of the conning tower in this very light grey, almost white color. Once that layer of paint has dried, I start by brushing the outline of the camouflage pattern onto the side of the conning tower. Once again, I have a reference that I've printed to the same scale as the model, so I can use that as a guide to just help me put on as accurately as possible this camouflage pattern. This is not going to be totally accurate. For me to actually 100% perfectly paint it onto the side of a model this small is going to be very difficult. So I'm not going for perfection here, I'm going for a passable copy. After painting the outline of the dark grey pattern, I fill in the inside using a thicker brush, and I also clean up the edges a little bit to make them more smooth and flowing. The same process is repeated for the other side of the conning tower. After putting on the dark grey pattern, there are some areas where I got it a little bit wrong, or I overshot it a little bit, or the paint ran and I want to do a little bit of correction. So I go back to the white paint or very light grey paint and do some touch-ups with that. There's a little bit of backwards and forwards here until I get the camouflage pattern into a state that I am happy with. The next part I'm actually finding quite fun to do. I have a 0.005mm pigment pen with a light grey color. Using this pen, I draw on this very fine wandering line in the white area of the camouflage. Once again, I'm not going for 100% accuracy. I think that would be basically impossible at a model of this scale. So I'm just going for a passable representation. As before with the hull, the color from the pigment pen doesn't show up very well on the dark gray, so I enhance the color there using white paint that I apply with a very fine brush. Once again, I don't get the white line quite right on my first attempt, so I cover over it in some cases with more of the dark grey and then redraw the line until I get it into a state that I'm happy with. Once I am generally happy with the state of the camouflage, I seal everything in with a gloss coat. This is Mr. Color GX112 UV Cut Super Clear. Normally I wouldn't apply a gloss coat at this stage. The The reason why I am applying the gloss coat now is because I'm not sure how this pigment pen will react to being touched at this stage. I don't know if it will smudge, but I do know if I cover it with a gloss coat, it will be sealed in and protected. That means I'll be able to install the conning tower onto the hull without worrying about damaging this camouflage pattern. After spraying on the gloss coat and letting it dry, and then move on to installing the conning tower on the hull. This is by far the simplest superstructure installation that I've done in a very long time. I simply take the conning tower, place it onto the hull, and then apply extra thin plastic cement to the side of the conning tower. And it's done. In the next video, I'll be continuing with painting. I'll be doing the weathering. I'm still undecided about how I'm going to weather this boat. I need to think about it a bit more. If you don't want to wait for the scheduled release of videos and want to watch them when they're uploaded, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. If you would like to support the channel, like and subscribe. And as always, questions are welcome in the comments. Thank you for watching. Cheers.